So in this lecture we're going to quickly run through the Pick 2 Choose 1 methodology using what we've got here as a venture workbook. This is the workbook that you'd use if you're working with ventures. Of course your assignments you'll use it and then you'll write up your assignments in a normal expected manner. But this is the way in which you do the thought and make all the connections necessary to formulate two entrepreneurial strategies for your venture. And these are the two that would hopefully be the ones that the venture would choose between in some deliberative manner once they're all presented and thought out and things like that. So that's our goal here for this lecture. So the question is, we've always been saying, how do we do entrepreneurial strategy? How do we make it into something that is structured and that we know somewhat whether we've done all the necessary bits for it? That's really our goal here. You can come up with business plans here, business plans there, get inspired by whatever, but we want to have a structured approach by which you go in stages and really work out the best options for your venture. So the methodology is basically an iterative one, as illustrated here. First thing you would do is you develop a strategy consisting of our 4 choices of entrepreneurial strategy. Then, of course, you'll do it again. So these 2 elements here give you the test 2 elements, if you do both of these. Of course, once you choose one, then you're going to devise an experiment later on down the track to distinguish between the 2 choices and think about, well, if I did this, how will I learn enough about whether to proceed? And then I may experiment again until I learn. Now, some of those experiments, of course, will be things that you can do repeatedly without cutting off options. In other cases, it may be that you may have to go to full implementation of one strategy or some partial implementation of it, which may actually undermine your ability to do future strategies. So that has to be part of what you're doing here as well. The starting point for any analysis of a venture and its strategy is to isolate the core idea. What is the entrepreneurial insight of your venture? That is, what's the thing that the venture understands that no or only a few people do? And you have to state it independent of any reference to customer, technology, identity, or competition choices. Now, this is a hard exercise to get going. So let me see if I can work out a way to illustrate it, and I'll do it with regard to a venture we've already seen in this course, and that is the CDL venture North. Let me pause there for a second and show you a video of their product, just to remind you.
Glasses have always helped us master light. They bend it, focus it, shield us from it. But these are not your standard glasses. They have a light of their own. A light that connects you to the people you care about, gets you where you need to go, and helps you prioritize the things that matter. Technology that's there when you need it, gone when you don't, hidden by design. Introducing Focals by North, your smartest pair of glasses.
So what is North's core idea? You might think that their new thing is that they're going to have smart glasses with notifications and information for customers. And the problem with this is maybe mainstream. The problem with this is that it has a lot of choices embedded in it. I mean, obviously I've stuck in here the mainstream customers. And that's a customer choice. That's a no-no. I've suggested that they've got smart glasses. That's not as big an issue, but the notifications and the information, well, maybe they are a little bit of technology choices. These are the sorts of things that are sort of like you're taking the strategy choices that you see there and you're putting them into this entire apparatus. What we really want to do is we want to find a way by which we can take this entire statement and reduce it to its essence. Now, there are a lot of different ways to do this, but the common notion is whatever their idea is shouldn't actually change as they change their strategy. So if they suddenly chose, for instance, to make smart glasses for a specific medical use or something like that, that would be a different customer choice than what they're presenting in this video. So there's no reason why they shouldn't do that. The core idea should stay the same. So what that would more likely mean is something like wearable and non-intrusive information presentation. And that's their core idea, that they're going to make that, or they're going to build the technology that does that. And that could lead to a lot of different things. We could, in this situation, say we could change wearable to eyewear. That wouldn't be too bad a thing to do, and still have us getting much of the same thing. But you see, we've sort of stripped away any technology. With no mention of the customer, certainly no mention of competition, or how they're trying to change the world or anything like that. So this is a good way in which to sort of distill down the core idea of your venture. And then you find when you're working with a venture on this little process of distilling the core idea is the thing that opens them up to seeing more of their business plans and more of their opportunities. And it gets us out of the Uber for X type mentality, which ends up being a strategy as well as an idea often. So having done the core idea, what do you do next? Well, we're going to have these 4 stages. You're going to list the 4 choices, articulate the linkages between them. You're going to state hypotheses, and I'm going to caution on that one because we're not going to emphasize that a lot in this course. This is more of a CDO advanced thing. We can't invent the entire wheel. And then, of course, we're going to capture it in a document. We'll start with the canvas, and then you'd write it into a document. And then examples of good assignments from past years that you can see. So what you want to do is you want to pick a strategy first and then list all the choices. So with respect to North, let's pick what they've currently shown us that they're doing. So who are their customers? Now, we had a big discussion about this, but it was sort of started off sort of as, hipsters initially, as a way of crossing the chasm to some sort of mainstream use customers. So it's very mass market in this current thing. What's their technology? They've got this little laser in a frame, and also the technology has other things like no camera, and they've got this little ring to move it around rather than, for instance, using voice. No voice. So they've sort of thrown away the external sensor environment in their technology choice for their current thing, for various reasons, but that's what they've currently done. What's their identity? Identity is things such as fashion and non-obviousness, and I mean that by in the sense that they don't want you to say, oh look, you've got friggin' smart glasses, Google Glass on your head. They're not doing that sort of thing. And their competition, this is pretty interesting. Well, they're making all their frames. So they're competing with lots of things, but, all glasses makers. And also all smartwatches too. Whoa, that's a lot of competition there. So that's what they're currently doing. Something along those lines. And why does this all make sense? Well, this is how you pull it together. So we take our hipsters, and why do we have a technology with no sensors? Because they're privacy conscious and socially conscious, and those things are flags, so they end up having the no sensors there. How do we get this into the identity? Well, there's obvious hipsters, no sensors, where our identity is tailored towards not in your face technology, so it's unobtrusive. And then how does this get to competition? Well, it doesn't necessarily obviously get to it, but partly is that they want to control the experience, which means that they have to do a lot themselves and make a lot themselves and make sure it fits properly and things like that when we discussed crossing the chasm. And how does this lead into the hipster thing? Well, of course, they're competing head-on as this fashion statement, and so that's where that sort of thing starts to arise. I mean, this is broadly speaking, but this is the sort of exercise that you want to do to see that it makes sense. Of course, you can go here and here as well. There's nothing in coherence that's to stop that. You'll then test these hypotheses about these things. Again, we're not going to emphasize that very much here, but what will this teach you about value creation? Will people wear it? And also, I guess, buy it at the current price. What will it teach you about value capture? Will others copy it? Is the main thing you want to test there, for instance, because this is a pretty disruptive looking strategy going on. Okay, so then you'd articulate, you lay all this out with the core idea and 4 choices and a bit more drilling down on identity and the hypotheses on the canvas. This is a good way of presenting it to your ventures, we think, and a good way of illustrating it, summary in your assignment. Obviously, we want you to drill down behind this and do more than just that. Then, and this is the counterintuitive stuff, we want you to do it again. Now that you've developed strategy A, you have to do strategy B. And strategy B is going to be harder in some sense because you have to choose a different strategy than the strategy that is already being done. Okay, so it has to be distinct. Now, what is going to be a distinct strategy? Ideally, you want to do a strategy that is premised on different value capture and creation hypothesis. In other words, if you're wrong about strategy A on one of these two things, then you should do strategy B. So you don't want strategy B to depend on the same sorts of things about the world that strategy A does. So that would be ideal. And so then you do it again. You list the choices, distinct strategy. So what might that be? Your customer could be you might choose to, let's do the one I said before, sort of medical uses or something like this. Then already you're happy to have more sensors. Your identity, you don't have to worry about fashion, just convenience or comfort might be much more important. And your competition, well, that's kind of interesting there. Do you cooperate with other medical device manufacturers or not? You could do any of those things. So you could articulate a whole thing there, and you'll have to go through the same exercise of ensuring that they all make sense in some broad way, linking together, because you just can't just choose these things independently. And then you write down these hypotheses, and these are important because you want them to be distinct from plan A. That's the best one to do. It just makes sense, right? You want it to be distinct from plan A. So that's what you do right there. And then you illustrate this is no campus, and now you can go to your entrepreneurial venture and you say, here's your choice. Here's 2 articulated plans. Take them, think about them, discuss it. Which one do you want to do? Both are feasible. We could do some more drilling down on them, but we have to think about whether that's going to affect the market, etc. And that's what you do next. This is, of course, beyond your assignment. Literally gets to this stage and then stops. This being the introduction course. Okay, and so you can sort of think about asking these sorts of questions to think about what do you learn from one strategy that you don't learn the other, and list some of the different elements of it. That's a good way to iterate on these sorts of things. And then you have to think about which one do you choose first. Is there any reason that you should worry about the sequencing? Would doing one first leave more options than doing the other, and that's something you should think about, work out, hopefully be able to analyze. And then you can actually give further recommendations if you so chose, and at least we've got a space here, but this is beyond what will be your assignment. After you've done all that, is it time to choose? Not necessarily. You might want to find a third strategy. There's nothing. We call it test 2, choose 1 because so many people just do one, and so we're encouraging people to do another one. But of course you could do more. But once you've got two approaches that are equally viable in your estimation, this is the time to stop. This is the time to just choose. Because you can keep on developing more strategies, but that will get you into things that are going to potentially delay your venture. This process can take all manner of times. We've had it there for developing the strategies from a day to a month, and if you have to do experimentation, it's longer than that. It of course depends on a lot of other factors and how much detail you think you can collect and think about and how hard it is. That's venture to venture stuff.